what do you think we could do in Africa to make sure that we ensure that digital inclusion?
Just create.
If I was to build an app, I'd be like, oh, I want to build an app like Twitter, but what if there could be some digital element for Africa? So why not innovate for Africa? Why not build solutions with a mind that Africans are going to be using these products?
And you have seen also in Africa, most countries, for instance, even Rwanda by itself, we are having policies and regulatory frameworks that really support, technology growth.
I think the educational system needs to embrace more hands-on experience, more hands-on practical things for learners.
Creators, I think, are the cornerstone for everything, in my own opinion.
So I think the first actors is, having people who are willing to learn. In this case, the crowd here is one of the most important actors.
Can you hear me? I have voice issues. The people in the back, can you hear me? Okay, cool. So hi everyone, my name is Mastel Mahoro. I'm in a bit of an identity crisis. I don't know if I should say I'm a software engineer, or I'm an engineer. I don't know what to say, but since I know very well more than software, I'll just say I'm an engineer. And so we're going to have an interesting panel discussion today. The topic of today is digital inclusion in tech communities. If you don't really know what's that about, it's exactly what you're going to find out. And we have like an interesting panel today. So, and as I say their name, I would like them to walk to the stage and so that we can start this. So we have Alela Khamis. If I put your name, who is Google Developer Relationship Community Manager. And we have Chukka, Engineering Lead at Meta. And we have Emmanuel and who's the Engineering Manager at Alela. Okay. All right. Hi once again. So as I just said, the topic for today is digital inclusion in tech communities. And my first question to the panelists will be what does digital inclusion in tech communities mean to you, and why do you think it's important?
To allow everyone who is within the technology ecosystem to access relevant resources, to get to meet other developers and learn, share, collaborate, and have solutions for the society. And by that, we should not be limited, let's say, to a specific device, let's say a desktop or so forth, but it should include all manner of, devices that you might use. Most of the people right now, we can decide to use, let's say, your phone, your tablet, right? And also you should be able to access, internet from wherever, whenever, however you want to access it, right? So everyone able to access the internet using all manner of tools from wherever. You don't need to be in the office to access. Neither do you need to be at home. You can do it from, let's say, a coffee shop or such a meetup like we are doing it right now. So that's my understanding of it. The way the world is moving in, I think we are past from those stages where we used to live in forests and forage. We are going towards a world where it's purely scientific, right? Information is no longer in silos. It is distributed across different systems that can be accessed from different devices and from wherever location, right? So the most important thing is access to information, which is really powerful.
To go next. Hi everyone. Are you happy because I am? Anyway. My name is Alela Khamis, part of the developer relations team at Google, regional lead for the Google Developer Experts Program, and also I handle the developer training efforts through the scholarship program. So for me, if I look at digital inclusion when it comes to tech communities, it's being able to gain access to tools, skills, resources, and networks regardless of your social economic status, your background, you may be coming from agribusiness, but you're interested in technology. So when you're able to access the same resources as any other person and get access to training, access to mentors, at the same time also it's an opportunity for you to scale up. Look at it in terms of, I may be a beginner in the room. I'm sure if I was to ask how many people are beginners in the room, beginners, then we have intermediates, and then we have experts. So just being able to gain access to the same things as everyone in the room and being given a chance for you to learn and grow as a developer. Yeah.
Hi everyone, my name is Chukka and I'm an engineering lead with Meta. So digital inclusion to me, I mean, in addition to everything they said, that's why it's always good to go last, but yeah, in addition to everything they've said, I think think of it this way, as organizations, as individuals who produce software, and not just software, devices like he's mentioned, content, thinking about how accessibility affects a global stage, right? I think currently there's a lot more work that needs to be done in this aspect. I think Africa, or sub-Saharan Africa in general, has usually always been, I don't want to use the word excluded, but not at the forefront of thinking. There are many examples of this. So to me, digital inclusion is the inverse of that. It's the intent, the active intent and effort by global organizations all the way down to us as individuals that create, to think about use cases that accommodates the rest of the world.
Okay, so we'll start with you like this one as well. So you brought up like the point of Africa and how like Africa has been like excluded, or you can say like left behind when we talk about these technologies. So my next question would be like, what do you think we could do in Africa to make sure that we ensure that digital inclusion?
Yeah, radical answer, but I think, or popular opinion, just create. If we create, and we create at a pace that brings respect and form to Africa, then the rest of the world will tailor around how we create. We need to show them what inclusion should look like. A good example in a parallel market is music. I think Africa in general has led over the last 5 to 10 years. I don't want to say one country in particular, but Africa, right? So, and now the rest of the world, when it comes to music, is now more inclusive when they're thinking about things like distribution and marketing, how they want to pitch access to all that content, right? You have countries like Spotify coming to Africa and Apple coming to Africa. And when I say Apple, these services have sort of always been there, but we weren't included because we couldn't access. And that's part of what I'm talking about. We had to create something that's worth the global stage. Then it forced them to say, hey, their market's here. So we can do the same thing. I think we should not, there's the habit of us always looking outwards. I think we should look inwards, create, and, dominate.
Yeah, this is the whole finance.
I feel like Chukka really addressed the question well. Personally, just being to equal to something else is innovate. We tend to find solutions for problems that are not from within. Personally, from personal experience, when you look at people, if I was to build an app, I'd be like, oh, I want to build an app like Twitter, but what if there could be something centered for Africa? So why not innovate for Africa? Why not build solutions with a mind that Africans are going to be using these products? I think once that happens, even other people will concentrate on what we're doing. We'll have shift the focus and say we could support Africa better. We could invest in Africa. Yes, we're seeing companies invest in Africa. Google is set up in Africa, Meta, Amazon, all the fun companies right now. But what happens in cases whereby now we have local developers who do not have access to those companies? So it's an initiative that each person should take. When you're thinking about creating solutions, build with Africa at the back of your mind. Build with the mindset that the solutions that you're going to create are going to be used by people within your ecosystem. Always be inclusive in your thoughts, all the way from ideation to implementation, and then ask yourself, the next billion users, where are they coming from? They come from Africa. Africa has to be part of the conversation. Yeah.
I think those are fantastic answers. So I'll take a different angle of that. I think over time you realize like these global countries, especially the big economies, right? They have been having, let's say, legal frameworks that support enterprises, schools to innovate and improve on technology, right? And you have seen also in Africa, most countries, for instance, even Rwanda by itself, we are having policies and regulatory frameworks that really support, technology growth, right? And they try to start it from, younger generations, high schools, people learning how to code, going to university, learning, how to code and so forth, becoming one of the core subjects, apart from, let's say, agriculture, law, and medicine. So these legal frameworks, I think, they should be continuing to adapt, right? Having things like patents, right, that support, specific innovations, and at the same time holding, let's say, organizations that have been trusted to support enabling environments. For instance, internet providers, if you have subscribed and let's say 2 days you do not get internet, then you'll find the regulator will come in and penalize you. So everyone has been, the policies and regulatory framework has been there to support, Africa, and I think we should be building on that as well. And if you look at these big companies like, Meta, Google, and so forth, right? They were started by young people at 19-year-olds, 20-year-olds, and right now they have grown into massive organizations, right?
We can't hear.
I think there's a recording. We'll share the video.
Wait, so you can hear at all?
A bit more volume.
Okay.
I think he's bluffing. I know him.
Yeah. Okay, so you brought up you touched on having policies that favor that digital inclusion, and that brings in the role of the government. My next question would be who do you think are the important actors, and what are their specific roles to ensure that we actually get that digital inclusion? Because Chukka talked about we should be creating, but we're not really doing that. So who do you think should who are the actors that you believe would push that to happen in their specific roles?
Yes. So I think the first actors is having people who are willing to learn. In this case, the crowd here is one of the most important actors, right? And then we have organizations that are willing to, apart from just the business side, also have the learning component on it. We are talking of Google Learning Community, Andela Learning Community in partnership with Google. We are talking about Andela itself having an ITMP program, which is in partnership with the Ministry of ICT. And I believe Meta has also a lot of learning resources that provides to developers, young and upcoming, right? So there's always that kind of innovation. And then, of course, there's the government which provides facilities like, resources, licensing, and so forth to ensure that, they work in an environment that is not restrictive, right? So those are the three main actors: learners, organizations, and of course, government, right?
Sure. I guess the first thing that comes to mind is our educational system. I don't know how many people have done computer science here and have had to write code on a piece of paper for your examination. How many have done that? Is it? So when you're submitting, personally for me, I remember my first year, we used to write code on a piece of paper and it's Java. And you're told, show me how the streetlights are going to change. I am not going to write this on my computer, I'm going to write this on a piece of paper. And so we need to embrace, I think the educational system needs to embrace more hands-on experience, more hands-on practical things for learners at an early age. Because we have seen instances where great developers are actually more self-taught. a majority do not have a background in computer science, but then you find them building really amazing applications, being really amazing developers. You know, they stand out, not because they have done computer science, but they're able to build better because in their mind, I have to learn by practicing. So that's one thing. Another thing also is content. The good thing is content is not limited to just Africa. The content that you're consuming is the same content being consumed by Alana in Mountain View, it's the same content being consumed by Alana in Canada and all that, and India and all. So we need to open our mind to the fact that you're not just competing within yourselves, you're competing for the same opportunities as those outside Africa. Because then you're consuming the same content they're consuming. So also as, I guess for any developer who's learning, then don't limit yourself to that. Then growth. So for you to grow also, broaden your horizon. Think beyond just your locality. If it comes to opportunities, you know, don't limit yourself to just, I have to work. Take an example, if I'm in Nairobi, then I have to work in Nairobi. Why not consider remote roles? So again, it's about, I think the key stakeholders is one, learners. Two, the government plays a big role in how our educational system is structured. I guess most universities in Africa, when it comes to only your 4th year project, is when you actually submit something. And truth be told, personally, it was like, am I going to download a template and edit it? Because even those who are teaching you have no idea what, you know, I'm being honest. I remember asking my lecturer about something in IoT, because my 4th year project was in IoT, and he had no idea what I was talking about. And I'm like, this is an Arduino, and he's like, what is this? You know, amazement from this thing in Arduino, and I'm like, I learned this from a hackathon. So also as developers, it's your role to identify opportunities for growth. If it's a hackathon, if there's a bootcamp, if there's something like the Google Africa Developer Scholarship Program, try to go through it. If there's a certification exam that you can take up, it's always a good opportunity to grow. So yes, I guess those are my key stakeholders for this.
Yeah, there's nothing to add. Except one thing. For me. So I think the government, yes, any given the learners, absolutely. I think creators is one, you know, very important stakeholder in this whole situation. If you can't, so within the learners themselves, the learners are getting content from somewhere. Someone also needs to create that content. So they are the key stakeholders, one of the key stakeholders in my own opinion. So learners there to consume, but the creators themselves. And here's how the effect of the creators, you know, balances everybody else. Creators who create good content can impact the educators, because the educators, like you just talked about, talking to your IoT, your teacher who didn't know what IoT was, right? If he had a platform where he could go created by other creators, with content created by other creators, he could get educated, which could also affect or impact formal schooling education. And I know this happens, right? In Nigeria, you have creators, or let me rephrase it this way, you have teachers who teach after-school programs to their students as a way to make extra income. But guess where they go to learn all that stuff? YouTube. You know what I mean? So creators, I think, are the cornerstone for everything, in my own opinion. But all the other, you know, stakeholders that have been mentioned are also critical to making, I guess, the topic we're discussing at hand.
Thank you very much. I would like to take this part and open it up to the audience. We have a huge audience today, and I'm pretty sure they have like a couple of questions I could ask you. So yeah, so if we'll take like 3 to 4 questions from the audience, and there's one behind there. There is one there.
Okay, she's helping him raise his hand. Yeah.
Hello. So thank you for your discussion so far. My question is about like the government in Africa. So even though we want inclusion, let's say softwares or applications even within Africa, an example is maybe Paystack or Flutterwave. We find that there's a lot of legal constraints. So even if they are in a country A and they want to go to country B, it's so hard for them to move. So is it possible we have to like find a way of making the government have like regulations that are easy for people to just come in to a different country within Africa, and then they don't have to make a lot of changes to their policies as a software or a company?
Yeah, I think you're spot on with your question. I think Kigali or Rwanda is a very good example of how the government views this. They want to be what's the word? Center of, sort of, let me just say the NOC for tech for Africa. And they're promoting policies that's very inclusive across countries. And I think if a government decides to work, lead the charge and then also work with other governments, that creates an environment that would accelerate things like what he's saying. So it's actually spot on, yeah. Anybody wants to take a go? Nobody else? Okay, cool.
Oh, there's a question.
Thank you very much for the nice discussion here today. I would like to ask two questions. One is about the community and another one is about the content. So, about the community, what do you think that the community should do to help people? What would a perfect community do for that digital inclusion to happen? And the second question is that there are already so many contents. There are so much content, and some of them are very good, so that can teach anyone. I would like to, it's just my thought, should we focus on creating other contents, or should we find a way to reach for them to reach to the people? So thank you.
That's a good question.
I'll answer the first question on how to make the communities more inclusive. I think one of the ways, personally, I used to be a GTG organizer like Uswe at some point, a few years back. And one of the ways we made our community more inclusive is by having peer learning groups.
Yeah.
So you try to find people who, one, are interested in the same thing and having the same challenges. So if it's maybe someone is getting started in Jetpack Compose in Android, for example, identify other developers who are new to the Jetpack Compose space. Learners who maybe are trying to migrate their applications to Compose, put them together, let them always have discussions. Another way is more and more study jumps always helps, because then they know what they're working on. It's an easier way to learn. With regards to your second question on content, all the developer experts here are content creators in a way. If in another world they would be socialites, but we're just going to call them content creators for now. You're socialites. So the reason as to why I'm saying this is there is already content, yes, but one of the ways for you to also learn is to actually share the knowledge that you have. So this does not mean that you need to limit yourself to the fact that now you cannot create more content as you're consuming more content. So if we have seen, and I'm sorry, I'm going to call him out on this, Ezekiel. Ezekiel, are you in the room? Just wave. Yeah. So this is one of the GTEs who creates content in French. Not because there is no content out there, but because also as a way of sharing whatever you know with the learners who you feel can relate to your content better, then why not create it? So again, I don't think there's something like so much content. It's just you can create content as a way of sharing information. Now with regards to consuming, I always tend to tell people, if you build with a project in mind, then you'll find yourself consuming bits and bits, and it won't feel like much. So just build with a project in mind if you're learning, or always try to also identify other people who you feel like their content relates to one another. And maybe also just follow the official blog posts for those, if it's Android. Again, sorry, I use Android because I was once an Android dev. Man, I feel old. People goes account. I actually spoke in Swahili because I'm doing the math in my head. But yes, so you can create content, you can consume content, but it's never too much. Just feel free to always share the knowledge that you have with others. Hoping I answered your question.
Hello?
Yeah, and apart from what she has said, I think the first thing you should do is join a community. right? After you join a community, that's when you'll know how where you best fit, right? If you're a beginner, you'll find the rest of the beginners there. If you're a senior guy, you'll be able to mentor the younger beginners and so forth, right? And then when it comes to content, let's say, for example, the Alela Technical Learning Program, we have a curriculum that has been developed and approved, right? So that if you go out there and compete with a developer from another country, then you are actually speaking the same language, the same jargon, and you're actually working within the same the same environment, right? So content is there, but you also need to know what is the quality content that you need, and also join a community, and from there you'll get mentorship. For instance, the Alela community, we have a really massive community of close to 175,000 in relation to Google, right? We work closely with Google.
Okay, thank you. My name is Kibogora, and I would like to ask the question one of you, because from my understanding, we don't in Africa, we don't have enough infrastructure for the content. So what are the strategy? What are the key players in creating the infrastructure to have this content? And another question is, what are learning opportunity for people who want to learn how to create content? Like me, myself, I had a challenge like some years back. I wanted to learn how to code, but it was not like today, but as the days goes on, more opportunities are coming. But what are the current opportunities for people who want to learn this content? Because the skill set are very needed. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that one is very simple and straightforward, because it can apply to anyone in the room. I also create content. I have a YouTube channel, right? And I started with my phone. Honestly, phone is what I started with. The first interview that I had was, I think an interview with the CEO of Bitcoins, and it was my phone. I just used my phone. That was it. And yes, it was rough. But the thing that I realized is the quality of the content didn't matter as much as the quality of the content. Does that make sense? The visual quality of the content didn't matter as much as the actual quality of the content, right? What was in it. So I believe you have a phone. I mean, if you don't have a phone in 2022, you should not be in this room. Period. So it doesn't matter what kind of phone you have, start small. There are a lot of free YouTube courses that can take, and free being the operative word, that you can take to teach you how to create, how to record, how to edit, how to research the content. That's pretty much on you, because if you don't know how to curate your content, why do you want to be a content creator in the first place? Doesn't make sense. So creating the content, and yeah, there are lessons that you can learn on how to curate content, but ideally there is something inside you want to share, or you've watched a bunch of things and you're like, okay, you want to stitch them up. So you already have the raw materials you're working with. So creating content shouldn't be a problem for you. It's the editing, publishing, and all of that, and the YouTube video. Just do a quick scrub search of YouTube, you should be fine. Does somebody else want to take the second question? Yeah? That's the reason why I'm asking if somebody else wants to take the second question, because I don't remember. Do you want to repeat the second question again? Sorry. Yeah. You asked two questions, I remember. Was it just one question? It was two. Yeah, what's the second one? Bet you can't even remember, it's you too. Okay, there's a camera, there's a mic coming. I don't remember the first one.
I was asking about the infrastructure for the content.
Oh, infra. Yeah, and I answered that. Sorry, I already answered. Your phone.
Hey.
Your phone. Yeah. And what I'm trying to say is look inward, right? You already have a phone to communicate, to make payments, to do everything, right? The thing is, you don't need a YouTube studio, for example, to create content. Having it is nice, don't get me wrong, but my point is, your phone is good enough. That's what I'm saying. That's where you could start from, right? Before aid comes with the form of government, or I don't know, partnerships with like Google, or who knows, Alela, I don't know. But your phone is good enough.
Thank you so much.
So I don't see any other question. So I would now like to thank our panelists for this interesting discussion. I hope each one of us, like whatever field or role that you're following in tech, you picked up like a thing or two of what you can do to ensure digital inclusion in your communities. And I hope we're actually going to put that in action. So thank you very much. And yeah, and thank you to Google developers planning to give us this opportunity. I will just hand over the mic for the closing remarks. Thank you.
Another big